Welcome, everyone. This is session 43 of Vibe Unit. Love to have you here. Appreciate you coming by. Got Mike with me today.
How's it going?
You know, we're just doing our thing here, the usual Sunday routine.
Been playing guitar so long,
Oh, wow.
I just realized it hides my my wound, but I'm fine. It's all
Is it, it's because you murder the guitar?
right. Yeah, and it's Halloween.
True.
So happy Halloween to everybody.
Yes, indeed. What are we feeling like doing here this week?
Well, I never know exactly what we're doing on a day like today. I was playing through my pedal board that I've been trying to simplify my pedal board down to a smaller board so it's more I guess you could say portable.
So what do you got on there?
It looks like I went with the Ibanez Tube Screamer. Let's see what else we got. Got the Attack Decay after that. And that feeds into an Echoes tape delay. I can't seem to get away from that delay. I just won't. That feeds into a slow. And then we got something new here. We picked this up at Sweetwater yesterday.
Yeah, so we took a little field trip yesterday.
Yeah, that was a good time. We spent, how long were we there? Probably about 8 hours we were there.
I mean,
And
not enough, you know.
Yeah,
like-
and I was going to say, I still don't think we spent enough time there. They just recently renovated, and their store is so much larger than it was. It's massive. Like, this place used to have, everything has always been organized really well there. You know, you have your guitar section, you have your synthesizers, you have your audio production section, your live music section. And each one of those rooms, I think, doubled in size.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, it seems to me that the area that they've now turned into retail space, I believe, is occupying space that maybe was previously occupied by some of the warehouse.
Okay.
Because I think the warehouse has now been moved to another building because they needed more space.
Oh, okay. So they just did a big shuffle around.
Yeah, man. I think just everything kind of moved in a circle because I'm not sure what they did with the previous retail area. I don't know if that's turning into like more like I know there's certain performance spots in there. There's also like conference rooms and auditoriums that are used for, you know, educational kind of presentations and that kind of thing. So I don't know if it's that or offices or what. But it wasn't really it wasn't like it was in a small space before, you know what I mean?
Right. It was
So-
large before, and now it's even larger, which it blew me away. One thing that they did there, they didn't have this before. They have it now, where there's a spot where there's these pedals all lined up on these nice racks. Now, that was there before. They had that built into a wall display. Now it's in the center of, I guess, what would be the main, like, aisle, like the middle of the store.
main thoroughfare of the store as it comes in from where you enter is like everything's just kind of arranged like that along that that spot, you know, that route or whatever.
So they have these little booths now that you can pull any pedals off the wall that you want to use or off the display, and you can try them out. And then they have a set of headphones there, a pair of headphones. You put those on, and you get to hear what those pedals sound like, and you don't have to really even communicate too much with any of the employees. Like, that's what you're trying to do, because it's just understood that you can just grab a couple things and try them out, which I think is extremely good. Before it was a whole kind of ordeal. You know, you had to ask for an employee to, you know, like, I want to try out these pedals. What can I use this amp? You know, that kind of thing. Which I think it was okay if you just went and grabbed and tried anyway. But, you know, there you have cables in certain places, and you have to ask for a pick.
The only place you really could do it before, I feel like, was either you had to find a free practice room or demo room, and if I recall, there was only like maybe 2 of them before.
Yeah.
And then if you go there on like a busy day, Like, you legitimately have to, like, wait outside that door and, like, ask people, like, hey, are you done in there? Like, you know what I mean? And get your spot. Like, or the other way you could do it, I've done this before, is where you just kind of grab a handful of pedals and then just go in the guitar room where there's both guitars and amps and then just kind of try them.
Yeah, try them
But
out.
you know how it is when you go into a guitar room in any music store. You know, there's always other people playing. It's
That's
not
the other
quiet.
thing I was going to talk about.
If you're trying to, like, really know what the characteristic of something is, I don't know how good that's going to do. You know, if you're just trying to see what does it do, you know, and get a feel, like, yeah, you can get that. But I don't feel like it was a super critical analysis you could do in that situation unless you could go in the demo room.
Yeah, so I put on the headphones and I'm listening to, you know, the guitar tones of the pedals, right? And I don't feel like I'm like I can do things on the guitar and I can experiment without worrying about other people being annoyed by what I'm doing, which I think is extremely beneficial. And so there was also a little section, a little booth that was neat that had to do with it was like signature tones. It was set up in the same way as like the choose your own pedals booth, but it had set up in a way where you could go up to it, and they already had pedals on this display, and they had like a Red Hot Chili Peppers like tone board, and then they had, I think John played a Coldplay board, and then there was a couple others I didn't have a chance to play, but I think the other two, I can't recall what the other two were.
Wasn't one of them Chili Peps?
That was the one I played. There was two others I can't remember, but needless to say, it was really nice and fun, and I think that would be really neat to see them implement more of that kind of design. I think another thing I'll do next time I go there is bring a pair of headphones with me, so when I'm trying out the synthesizers, I could just plug into some of those speakers they have.
That's a good call.
That
honestly.
way I'm not annoying everybody around me, and I can just really experiment with some things I'm trying to do without it being annoying. And headphones are nice just to have around for those reasons. You just, like, even cans like this, you know, you just put them on your ears. You feel like you're isolated, and you can just focus on what you're trying to do without feeling like you're obnoxious. Because what it would happen in waves, you know, and this happens at any music store. If anyone's watching knows what I mean when I say it comes in waves where there'll be like you in there playing an instrument, you're and it's pretty much just you, and then the next thing you know, it ramps up, and all of a sudden you have like 30 people and they're banging on keys and experimenting with sounds, and the next thing you know, it's chaos. And that happened probably 3 times. I mean, we were there a long time. We were probably in the synthesizer area for a good long time.
Yeah, so I think you spent most of your time in there.
I did. Yeah, that's because that's more my, you know. And then you and I talked about this on the way home. We both are fascinated with the modular synth community.
Yeah.
And that little booth they had set up where you could just try your own stuff, that was really cool. And it sold me. I hadn't spent that much time with modular Eurorack stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a whole world that, I don't know. It looks like, let's be honest, it kind of looks like magic when you watch it. You're just like, what the hell?
I
you
felt
know?
the same way.
But at the end of the day, it's like if you understand anything about signal flow, it's not that weird, you know, if you read what, you know, the labels on all the inputs and outputs and whatever, and it's like, all right, what happens if I do this or that?
Were some of them a little confusing? I think I need to read the manual for like maths. I didn't understand how the maths module worked.
Really? It was just a clock subdivider.
Oh, okay.
That was, so all the numbers that are labeled on the ports, that's what division it is.
Oh.
So whatever the beat was, the 1 is gonna give you 1 for every 1 it receives. The 2 is gonna give you 1 for every 2 it receives.
Well,
the
that was that the colored section?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got that one, but there was one above that, and it was like really confusing with like it. I've seen this module before. It's really like popular module. It's the one that says maths in the center. It's silver. Do you remember that one?
I thought that's what I was talking about, but maybe not.
No, I know that the one you're talking about, if it's colored, it was the one below that, and it was really thin. Maybe,
all right.
But anyway, point is, I didn't understand a lot of the modules because there's like it was like you had to like kind of decipher what they wrote in for each little thing, and so those I kind of avoided for now. It's like I kind of need the manual, I think.
My approach was basically like, there's plenty of this that I know exactly what'll happen.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that because I'm going to get the most enjoyment out of like the success of like, yep, it does what I thought. Cool.
Yeah.
And then once you've got it patched in that way that you were intending, then the experimentation of like, okay, well, what can I change about this? Like that's a fun thing for me.
Yeah.
That's I feel like what you do, right? You would
Yeah.
start with modules and that you like for whatever reasons, and then you try to really learn them front and back and understand why they do what they do. And then as you run out of options with that, then you go, boy, if I just had whatever other unit, it's just this cascade thing where you end up with a room in your house full of this stuff.
Yeah, very similar to guitar player with pedals.
I think it's pretty much the same thing.
I was gonna say it, and we talked about that too. It's just pedals for synth players.
Because honestly, the pursuit's not much different.
I do think that it's cool how everything's standardized in terms of size, because you can really, you can make a really clean looking, like almost I intended it to look this clean kind of thing, because it's all just gonna work together. Just they measure in units.
That's one of the weird, yeah. So I come from the, pro equipment and like. I do IT for a living, so I see a lot of rack mount stuff just in general, right? So I've always been appealed by that like, 1U is 1U, like that's 1.75 inches or whatever in the world that is.
Yeah.
I forget what the actual is. I think that's what it is.
I think it is. I looked it up this morning. It might be 7.3, but
either way, the point is like it's something you can count on where there is variance, right? Like like if I were to buy, just for example, if I were to buy a couple of computer servers, right? And I buy a Dell, one's a Dell and one's an HP. It's like if it says 4U, it's like planning for how I'm going to incorporate it into everything else and all that, like all the things it needs to support it to do its job. That stuff becomes really easy. And then, but there's still a ton of variance. Like if you set those two machines side by side, like they have totally different front panels. The way the drives are presented is totally different.
Yeah.
Where they put the indicator lights is totally different. Like there's variance in the style and presentation, even though enough of it is standard that if you're trying to build something that requires a bunch of these, it's really easy to plan around.
Yeah.
And I'm appealed, like that's very appealing to me. And this is probably like my hot take controversy statement of the day, right? But like I don't like the fact that guitar pedals are all different. It pisses me off.
If they stuck together as nicely as a Euro rag setup,
So like when I see a company that makes enough of everything where it's like it would be possible to build a board of all their stuff, like there's a part of me that's like someday I just let me do that, like just so that it all looks like it was meant to, like you're saying, like
that's a good idea. I mean,
or like here's another example, right? Like you have two pedals next to each other there, right? You have the Echoes, which is a Keeley product.
Yep.
And then you have the Slow, which is a Walrus Audio product, and they're in the same case.
Yeah.
And Josh talks about this on from JHS. He talks about, and he's a pedal builder himself, so he knows what the standard like case variants are called, like what the generic trade term for if you just want to buy an empty version of that. Like he knows what they are. So like he could look at some random pedal vendor he never heard of before and go, oh, that's a whatever case. So there is some kind of standardization in that sense, but it's like I feel like pedal makers lean more into the like our shit's different than the other guy.
Maybe
so like they're always
past,
trying to do something that's a little different.
Yeah.
I don't love it. I don't know.
Agree.
I don't know. It's a fine line. Some of it's cool in the sense that different vintages of stuff looks different. Like certain cases were more popular in different times. Like for example, the classic Boss guitar pedal, right?
Yeah.
The ever cloned, ever emulated, you know what I mean? Ever copied Boss.
Yeah.
And it's like there's really nothing sexy, in my opinion, nothing really sexy about the industrial design of a Boss pedal, but it does everything it's supposed to do, and they're bulletproof.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So like in that reason, it's a good form factor. But Boss is a good example of a company that like, and you know this, but like, there's nothing you could ever possibly probably want that Boss doesn't. There isn't some combination of Boss gear that could get you there.
Right.
So you could build a pedal board of all Boss stuff, and it would look awesome. But then you gotta like choose to miss out on maybe certain specific other things you like from other vendors. So it's neat to me when you see a lot of different companies, but they end up using the same boxes,
same measurements and the same.
Like that's really the fact that those two are the same is really interesting to me, because they're not. Those companies aren't they're not connected.
You made
or
a good
anything.
point. Like you look down the line of all the pedals yesterday. I mean, that's going to be within our reach, I guess. Like within something we can experience. Probably the most pedals we'll see in one spot. Like there's so many there, and being able to look at them all side by side. I thought that was really cool. And you're right. All the different shapes and all the different things. I kind of don't want to take away from that. Like I kind of like that. I think you were kind of alluding to that too. It's kind of cool, like because you can see different vintages and stuff. But also at the same time, it'd be cool to also have some standardized system for that, where like you could build a really nice, clean-looking board that just all works as well as a Euro rack mount. I love seeing like the 1 unit sized pieces in there, and you almost like. Because I'm not used to Eurorack. That was probably the most I've ever looked at that kind of stuff. That was probably the most time I ever spent thinking about it or trying to figure it out. And
Yeah, you were in there a while, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I know it's something you've wanted to spend some time in for a while.
yeah, and the way they had it set up in there, it felt comfortable. Before it wasn't very comfortable for me because it felt like it was on the corner and like people.
Yeah, it was literally in the corner in like a hallway, and you're like, I feel like if I'm sitting here, I'm literally blocking the path for other people, and not only that, like. I guess I'm in a common area, so like I don't really want to turn anything up or like bother anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If I brought headphones, it would have been fine. Just plug right into that mix board and turn down the mains. But yeah, I was looking and I kept losing sight of the 1 unit, like the 1 unit size pieces. And then I'm like, man, I feel like I shouldn't be neglecting those so much. I feel like those are extremely important. They wouldn't be in there for like no reason. I mean, maybe they're there for filler, but I was.
It's like pedals, right? There's 100 of everything. So
Yeah.
like many things can do the functions that other things do too. It's just but that's the cool thing. It's
Yeah.
up to you as the operator of that unit to decide like what pieces I like from what and how do I want to integrate them.
Yeah.
Like for one thing you may say I like this combination of things, for another you say I like this combination.
Yeah.
It's, like you said, it's basically just it's pedals
Yeah.
for synth people.
And what I do to understand my pedals is before I even I'll mess with them a little bit when I'm about to buy it. I usually play with them in the store and just kind of figure out if I really want to buy it. But after that, I read the manual just to see. I think, and I have a suspicion that if the manuals were sitting on the table there, I would have probably spent more time reading about stuff. That might be I don't know how like easy that is to do for a store with a lot of people come through. The manuals would get destroyed, but
Your pro tip, I didn't think of this then, obviously, but what you should have done is just taken a picture, like a high res photo of the whole thing, just so you
Yeah.
can see which modules are in there, and then you could do a little bit of homework,
do
right?
homework and then
And
come
then the
back.
next time you come, assuming those modules are still there, which I don't know why they
They
wouldn't
would be, I think, yeah.
it would allow you to, instead of having to sit there and have it be all experiment, it's like, yeah, there's some of that, but like I knew what direction I was heading and what I wanted to do before, I didn't,
Yeah.
it wasn't coming in completely blind and then happening across something that works. It's like, no, I know like at its core what this does and how it functions. I want to integrate it in this way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a different kind of workflow mindset with it.
Well, this is getting me to think, and I hadn't thought about this before, but having this experience at Sweetwater has got me to think that one thing I'd like to do with my students going forward is I should set up, like, depending on what they're interested in, and I guess I have kind of been doing this, but I want to set up a situation where people can feel comfortable experimenting and feeling more like, I have, like, planned lesson days, but and this wouldn't really work because I teach out of my house at the moment, but it'd be cool to have a space where people can come and just, like, learn, like, just by doing it themselves and some self-teach, because and then having someone there to guide you. And there was a guy at Sweetwater that walked by a couple times like, hey, you know what that one does? And I'm like, no, what does that do? And he's like, well, try that. And then he walked away. It was just this, I was like, oh, okay. It was just kind of cool where it wasn't like I felt like I didn't have to meet his expectations of learning. And
Some of that's cool in general. I had a thing that happened like that too while I was there, where this is when I was trying the crayon.
yeah.
And I wanted to, well, really what it was, and I actually talked about it on this show, but one of the pedals I was very interested in had a really just kind of characteristic drive sound that I like is the East River drive, which is also
I saw when you were playing that.
electroharmonics,
Yeah.
right? So it was on my list of things I wanted to try, like go and see what that East River is, like really try it and see if it's what you like. Well, then I saw the crayon next to it, and I've read enough about that. It's like, all right, well, I'll just grab both. Like, if I'm going to try one, why wouldn't I try both? And so in my pursuit of trying to see what those sound like, you know how it is. You're playing, like you said, through headphones, and without digging too deep into it, it appeared to me, I did a little looking underneath those cabinets to see how they were all set up.
Yeah.
And they were basically using RDL headphone amps hooked up to 2 Notes Torpedo cab amp and cab sims, which is kind of the standard like digital IR loader amp emulator, whatever. So that's cool because I have a little bit of experience with those myself. So like it wasn't sounding the way I wanted. Like I felt like what I was hearing wasn't a good demo of the pedal, but I knew it wasn't because the pedal sucked. It was because I wasn't playing it into the right thing.
Yeah.
So being able to kind of open that door and just like look at that torpedo and go, oh yeah, it's not going to be the kind of amp I'm trying to sim right now, you know, like, and being able to quick tweak it out to get it flat. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like now I can hear what I want. Well, then not 5 minutes later when I was putting those pedals back, some other guy steps up to the station next to it or whatever. And he's like just stepping up with his pedals. He goes, what are these hooked up to? He's like, is it pretty clean? Like, is it whatever? I was like, I don't know what that one sounds like. I was like, they're using 2 Notes for the Sims. I was like, so if you don't like it, like maybe just look under there and see if, you know, if you want a different model or whatever. And he was super stoked about that. He's like, I've seen those before. So it's like one of those things where it's like, if you don't care, then you don't care. But if you do care, like the stuff's right there.
It's right there
if you
for
want to be
Yeah.
sure about it. And like, so for me, I was able to get it close enough to where I'm now sure, yes, I do want that EHX pedal, but I actually I like the East River, but I think I want the Crayon. And I'm positive about that because the setup they had there was good enough that I was confident that it's like, okay, I'm not having to make, like you were saying, like make a decision in a room full of wailing guitars or something. Like, it's the setting I want to evaluate it in, and I'm sure of myself now. I heard it the way I wanted to hear it.
Wow.
And it's like, if I can do that there, of course I can do that at home. It's, you know, so it's nice to have that experience and have other people around. And the same thing, right? I told him what I knew and told him where the thing was. And I was like, yeah, I'm currently like the best clean, you know, preset I found was whatever, you know, like that I had set the other one up with. And, you know, say what I say, he says thanks, and I walk away. And it's like, that's how it happens there, where it's like, even the people standing around, like, you know, why not just ask them, like, hey, do you know anything about this?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to work there or not. It's like, why would any of us be here if we didn't have interest in this?
I wonder if, too, like, I want to be a better, I was talking about this a little bit yesterday. I was thinking about this. I'm really awkward, like, with customer service, I think. I'm trying to figure out how to be a better customer and communicate, like, what I'm actually trying to do. Because sometimes I don't want like anyone to kind of interrupt me because I'm in a flow state. I'm just trying to understand on my own, and I do that like probably in a prideful way.
I think their CS folks there though are pretty good about that. I've never once been like bothered by and I'm very sensitive to that, dude. Like I can't go to a Best Buy because of how the employees are trained and operate, right?
Yeah.
But like Sweetwater has that, at least that many employees or more, you know, just walking around the floor like effectively looking for people to assist. But, like, you don't have to tell them to piss off. Like, they're literally just going to ask you, like, are you good?
Yeah.
And if you tell them, yeah, I'm good, like, they're not going to be pushy. They're not going to be like, are you sure? Can I show you this thing you should buy? Like, they don't operate that way.
Yeah.
So, and they don't interrupt you if you're in the middle of something, which is really
that's what kind of feeds into what I was thinking, because I've spent so much time with that kind of service where it is feeling kind of hostile, and where now it's like, wow, their customer service is good. I almost need to refine how I view myself as a customer.
Yeah, you almost have to like flip the switch off and be like, look, it's Sweetwater. Like this is not
just
how
kind
it
of
works
put my guard down
else.
a little bit, because and that's what I mean. Like I'm trying to figure out how to be a better customer in that regard, because I feel like maybe there was a time when that was more the mainstream, that kind of customer service where it was more about that, where I feel in my experience with most places now, it's been really I've gotten very callous, I think, to a lot of that. Like I feel like the end goal is just to screw me over a little bit. Whereas I don't think that's a Sweetwater thing. So
well, I feel like it's not so much about maybe their culture and more about just the scale, right? Like you when you scale up to a certain size, it's not a big ask for someone to say, "Hey, have you got a guitar pick?"
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Things
yeah.
like that. Like here's an example. Say I didn't like that 2-note setup.
Yeah.
And I wanted to hear it through an amp or whatever. Like nobody would have bitched literally if I said, "Hey, can you bring me a what?" Like specific things, you know.
Yeah.
I want to hear this through an AC30. You got one of those around here? They'd get one out of the warehouse for me if that's what it took for me to hear what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And my point is, that's not being an asshole or being a needy customer. Like that's just you communicating with them. Like, hey, like I want to know if this is for me. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're the quality of what you can give me in terms of my evaluation of this is what's going to make or break the sale. You know what I'm saying? But they're also not like a lot of small music stores where they'll do that, but only if they think like he's definitely going to buy it, right?
Right.
Where at Sweetwater, they don't care, man. You could demo 10 things and leave with nothing, and they'll still understand you just didn't what happened there wasn't enough for you to make a decision. They're not pushy at all.
And I noticed too that anyone who works there, they're not just working there because they sort of like music. They are working there because they actually are like career musicians and they're doing something other than that, like, or they want to do something more than that. So like we were talking to that guy yesterday and the microphones and stuff, and he doesn't just work for Sweetwater. He also like records musicians and stuff. Like he does extra things apart from that. It's not like he just shows up there to
Same thing with my rep. Shout out Anthony Longano. Like Anthony's my guy, and like I know that there's certain things that Anthony is the guy to talk to because he does it himself.
Yeah.
Right? Like he had, like for example, Anthony's the reason that I got heavy onto Focals. I had heard them once before, and was very blown away in the sense that wow, these are good, but not in like a comparison to anything else in that price range. Nothing, just like a blip instance like, in time of like, damn, those are good speakers. But then like meeting the guys from Focal and understanding like why they build the stuff the way they do and understanding that part of it, and then understanding this stuff is standing up to industry standard, you know, products. It's like what really did it for me wasn't, oh, I like Focal because they're made in France. I like Focal because they sound good. It's like, no, I like Focal because Anthony's making records and he trusts them.
Yeah. You have context and like an anecdotal.
So it's like
reason.
I already was impressed, and I was leaning towards like, hey, I would use this. But he goes, hey, I got a set of Focals in my studio. This is what I had before those.
Yeah.
This is why I picked them. And it's like, okay, like that means a totally different thing to me than, well, this is what they are compared to this at this price, and this is the specs, you know? Like anybody could compare two numbers, but it was so much more valuable for him to tell me this is why I trust him, and then trying it myself and realizing, yeah, this was worth it, you know? There's other things that I know that he's not real into. Like Anthony's he's not super into like synthesizers and shit, right? So like his comment about what he feels about something in that category of items maybe I wouldn't assign as much weight to, but I know the things that he knows and that he deals with himself. Like you said, he records, he has a studio at home.
Yeah.
Like I trust him on certain things because I literally know he's doing them all the time. And that's super useful.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a different level of kind of thing, you know, because like you said, it's not just here's the sales guy, what can he sell you? It's like, no, here's the sales guy that also does what you do. Just talk to him about that.
Yeah.
Like,
and they have an education department there that kind of does a good job of, I think, of working through, like, teaching a lot of the stuff too. It's like new stuff's coming down the pipeline. It's like, well, you should know something about it if you're going to sell it, kind of thing. I feel like they have a good system for that. So
look, and then the other thing they do as well that's related to that is they also give, you know, pretty steep discounts to employees, depending on the product, of course, you know, and what the markup is. But my point is that if you work there, there's opportunities for you to get into gear in your budget that normally you would have said maybe that's a little much for me.
Right.
So like you get an opportunity, I think a lot of people that work there also, to try things that they're interested in or acquire gear that they wouldn't have otherwise. And of course, like anything else, that just makes their context more valuable because they've actually tried the thing. So
wow.
I like it, man. It's a cool place to be. I could spend almost an infinite amount of time there. It feels like.
Yeah, I didn't feel like any time had passed by the time we left. I was tired, but that was the only reason I knew I'd been there a long time.
Right.
Not because I was ever. There was never a moment where I was like, not searching or looking or entertaining myself or like having some experience where I was like, okay, I learned a lot down there yesterday too. So, or, you know, that was cool.
Yeah, it was an awesome day. Can't think of much of a better way to spend a Saturday, honestly. Like,
Well, we should go back soon when we get some time.
hey, it's not a hard sell from over here, I'll tell you that.
So I think, because we were talking a couple weeks ago about the projects that we want to work, like, and I'm thinking in line of mine, projects that we're going to be working on. I think I need to get out of the tinkering mindset that I find myself to be in a majority of the time and commit to some things. Like, for instance, if we do this record, I don't want to be spending any time thinking about tones anymore. Like, I want to choose that tone and then move forward with it. So, with that in mind, I'm trying to simplify. Now, I'm not saying this board I have in front of me is the end game board, but a lot of the sounds I want to get, I can get with these 4 pedals. Any kind of like cleaning of the sound and stuff, we can rely on maybe like the extra pedals that do that and kind of figure those in the board, like compression and like noise suppression. But I'm getting to the point now where I think this is close. I really do like the Tube Screamer sound. I think it colors the tone nice. I'm not entirely sure. Not getting anything though. Is that me?
Oh, I had muted you because you don't have a noise suppressor.
Yeah, I should have hit the thing. Yeah, I need that noise suppressor. Yeah, you can hear that little bit of hum.
There is a ground lift on that guitar DI. You could try it. That's better with it. Yeah. Go ahead and lift it. There you go. It's not perfect, but it's less of that high harmonic.
It's not as noisy as I thought it would be, though.
Let's put it this way. It's as noisy as I would expect given how high you have the drive knob on that Tube Screamer. I never move it past noon. So I'm saying they're just characteristic. Like, that's just, you're adding a lot of gain.
I could dial it back a little bit.
What's the level on the pedal at?
Pretty low.
Maybe just try, what is the volume all the way up on your guitar?
Yeah.
Maybe just a little bit down on drive and a little up on level.
What do you think of that one?
I like that.
It's a little bit mid. You hear that?
I mean, that's Tube Screamers, though.
Yeah.
You could take the tone, and where's your tone knob at?
I would say it's at like 2.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
It's higher than I thought. The other thing too is, like, I know a lot of times you're not playing through amps, but that's where the meat is, or where it's supposed to be. So, like, you have something there emulating an amp. If I was in your shoes, I would probably put a little more gain into the amp and use the drive more to, like, force it to break up instead of relying on a drive pedal to sound like an amp, because they never will. It's a different kind of thing.
So, like, to turn the Tube Screamer off entirely?
No, definitely not off. I'm saying, like, just use it to boost the gain stage on the amp. So I'll show you what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So, like, that's level, that's drive. So leave drive up and pull level down.
part of the tone I really enjoy is that, like, I'm gonna say, I guess basically because that chord progression I just played, but I really enjoy Third Eye Blind. I really enjoy, like the Gin Blossoms or
Same.
yeah.
Same. Do we have time for story time?
Talk.
I heard they have a song called "Found Out About You,"
Uh-huh.
and the first time I ever heard this song, believe it or not, was on that. I've talked to you about this, but that first computer I ever had that I had a MIDI interface where I had like a full GM sound set that I could just feed stuff into. I started collecting MIDI files, like just straight up .mid files that are 16 channel whatever, right? Just sequences.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't have much music knowledge. Like, I didn't know a lot of bands or songs or really anything like that. So they would just have, like, usually the names of the songs. Like, it'd be some cryptic file name, like 018 underscore for, found out about you. And it's like, I don't know who wrote this song. So for a long time, I just assumed they were just random little things that somebody made for the fun of it. And then later found out, no, like, those were people trying to make, like, MIDI versions of these songs that like a lot of people would just know, right?
Yeah.
And so like that band is an example of a band that I heard MIDI versions of their songs long before I ever heard the actual songs. So it was a big deal when I heard the song because I was like, what? Like that's an actual song? Like I thought that was just some BS I found, on the internet or whatever. So the first place I ever saw it or heard it, like the original real song, I was doing some work for someone when I was pretty young, like probably like 13, 14. I was helping them just clean out like a basement and a garage of this house that they were renting.
Yeah.
And in the basement of this house, there was a jukebox, like an old jukebox. And I asked the guy because he basically like showed me what he wanted done and was going to leave. And I was like, does this jukebox work? And he goes, yeah, it works. And I go, can I play something on it? He's like, sure. So I'm like looking through it. Guess what it had in it? Found Out About You, Gin Blossoms.
Oh,
and I was
wow.
like, what? So the first time I ever got to hear the real version of that song, I was like 14 years old in the basement of some broke-ass house on some old jukebox playing a record of the song. And so that song is actually
and that was
super,
that was on a record?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
That song is incredibly meaningful to me in terms of like sensibilities about like chord progressions and what I like in guitar tones. Like it's really important.
Do you like
in my musical journey.
Goo Goo Dolls?
No.
Okay. Do you like trying to think of other bands that
It's not that I don't like the music, I just don't like the way it sounds.
Okay.
It's just one of those for me.
Oh, right on.
It's kind of like why I don't like most Metallica records. Like it sounds like they're playing in a cave.
It's
generally
the way it's produced.
Yeah, I'm not really a huge fan of it.
That's fair.
But I think it's amazing, like the songwriting and structure of the stuff. Like they're good songs. I like. Let's put it this way: I like people's covers of their music usually more than I like whatever the original one was, kind of thing.
Well, it's like kind of that like writing style that I like in those bands. Anyway, when I found I liked that kind of music, I don't think it was anything to do with like the way it was produced or anything, because I was not very sensitive to that. What I liked was the melodies, and I liked the content that was in the music. Because my approach to music was always melody. Like when I interpreted music, I didn't hear the rhythm, I didn't hear the guitar tones or like any of that, except for like I heard chord changes. I knew what chord changes I liked. I was sensitive to that, but that's because I think it went hand in hand with the way the melody was. And then I also experienced the lyrical content and the melodies that were used. So fast forward to now, you find yourself going back and listening to those records that you thought were good when you were younger. And I approach music a lot differently now than I used to. Like I'm way more sensitive to the quality, the tones, and the way it's produced, being that I've been in that world and seen it built up. So sometimes I'll go back, and I haven't listened to a lot of those songs that I used to love that got me into music, but I think that I've gone back a couple times and I've been like, oh wow, it's really like stacking up tones around here. Or like it seems noisy here, or like it sounds too thin. Like why isn't there even a bass in this? Like one of the bands that comes to mind that was kind of like that was like the New Radicals. Sometimes they didn't. It felt like they didn't have any like bass. It was like very tinny sometimes. But yeah, like the writing is what got me into it. And so with all that being said, when I wrote the music for like I guess you'd call it the Lakeside Broadcast Project, even though that's not the genre I was writing in, I was writing those kind of chord structures and those kind of things and those kind of melodies. So sometimes I realize this, like growing up, when I'd say, or like when we first started working together, I said I want it to sound like this. I wasn't really saying I wanted to sound like this kind of like guitar tone or this kind of thing. I was always saying I want to sound like this kind of melody and this kind of chord structure and this kind of thing. I didn't realize
of course,
that.
my interpretation of that is, oh, you want it to like sonically match that.
Exactly,
Like, I can
exactly.
do that. And then you'd be like, well, that's not what I meant. It's like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
this sounds exactly like it.
You would nail the sound because your approach to music was always the way it was produced. I just find that very fascinating.
I think a lot of it, honestly, was just driven by just how a lot of things were in my childhood. Like I said, like access to a variety of music and stuff was like tightly controlled in my childhood. So like when I would get those little glimpses, like I was talking to you about how influential like the music they used to play on the speakers at Taco Bell in the late 90s,
you did
right?
mention that, yeah.
Even that, it's like because those were little windows where like nobody could tell me I wasn't allowed to listen to it. It's just on. Like, what am I supposed to close my ears?
Right.
Right. So it's like if I'm gonna quote get away with listening to this for however long I have to do it, I better hear everything there is to hear.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what drove that, where it's like I only might get to hear 20 seconds of this. I better be able to really grab out like whatever spoke to me.
Yeah.
You know. And usually it would be like that instant analysis of like, okay, that's what guitars are doing. Okay, that's what the drums are. Okay, that's what the bass is. It's like, all right, I could do that in 20 seconds at some point.
So if you keep, while we continue on this, I guess going into this project, if you can keep the sonics and everything sounding really good, I'll write really catchy melodies and I'll write really good songs.
Yeah, like weirdly, that's like I never latched heavily super onto that, and I think that's part of why it's so hard for me to like memorize songs.
Yeah.
When I used to play for churches a lot, that was a major problem.
Yeah.
Like this is just the straight up truth. Like I'm dead in the water without a confidence monitor in that situation because I'll forget every word.
Yeah.
They don't, and it's weird because like I think of myself as fairly articulate and like I have a reasonable vocabulary, so it's not like I can't remember words. Like that's not the problem. The problem is something about like that marriage of the music and the words. It's like I'll get so caught up in the music that I can't even hear that anyone's saying anything.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just very, very strange. So it's hard. Like recently, I've been listening to a lot of pop, just tons, and one of the artists I've been listening to a bunch just because more originally for writing sensibilities is Julia Michaels. But it's interesting because like with that, like that music, it's like there's something about the repetition. I heard it a bunch of times and eventually something kind of stuck with me. Like a couple of her songs I know most of the lyrics to now, but it's more because like I was so interested in the sonics that I had to hear it 100 times to be sure about what I was hearing.
Yeah.
And in the process of doing that, of course, I forced myself to hear the lyrics 100 times. And eventually they stuck. But, like, I'm saying that was like a side effect of digging deep into the sonics that eventually I started to remember pieces and bits. And now it's like, okay, yeah, I kind of know how it goes. But
So
that's a long and difficult process for me.
that's why I think that's something we need to lean into when we write. As we talked about a couple weeks ago, going to start finishing some projects. I think keeping in mind that I'm going to defer to you, like when it comes to like sonics to some degree. I mean, I definitely will have input, but we'll work that out. But like, the thing I feel most comfortable with, and the thing that I know I can do really well is write a really catchy melody and write really good chord structures. So with that in mind, I think that's going to provide us enough structure that we'll be able to get a lot of stuff done through that. I think that workflow. Just realizing that you're the thing that, even though like both of us would be able to dip our toes into each other's like workflow, like you definitely throw out good chord progressions. Like when we were working at Skylight Huddle, we did that. You know, we kind of worked together on that kind of stuff. I think what it's gonna end up being is like, I don't want to have the final say on tone all the time. I think I'm gonna be more likely to like defer to you on that kind of stuff, and let's have a discussion there, because all I care about is writing a really good melody. That's like really all I care about. That, and like having like a really cool chord progression underneath it. Like that's what I really care about. I think the rhythm stuff, I think you and I both, like you have more like, I think you have a really good tactile feel to rhythm. Like, you know, you're good at drumming and like good at that kind of stuff. And I have a really good, I do a good job of like writing in, like, I guess like.
I can tell you this. I use you as a test when I'm writing rhythms. Like when we were at Skylight and I was working on stuff, it's like when I saw a certain neck snap out of you on the one,
yeah,
right? It's like that's when I knew. It's like I don't like that's enough of a clue to me to just see like, oh, that affected him enough that he can't not like feel it a certain way. It's like then I'll stick with that.
Exactly.
So like I value that.
I think in the rhythm section while we write, because we don't have anyone who's going to like be a staple drummer for us. Like we're going to be creating all our own rhythms in this project. So I think with that being said, you and I can both go at that and kind of go for feel. The best I can do in explaining what I want rhythmically is to say I want it to feel like, I want to feel a little, I could tell you I want to swing a little sometimes, or like I don't want to swing at all here. I want to be real straight. Or I could say I want it to have a halftime feel, or like I could say I want it to be like really sparse kick drum. I can like communicate that kind of stuff, but like I usually when I'm writing rhythm parts, I'll start with some like drum beat that's already been created, and then I'll remove what I don't want out of it, or I'll add to it.
Interestingly though, notice the way like the last two things that we've worked on over at your place though, like I kind of do the same thing. I just know that I'm headed that way from the start.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'll do things like find a way to filter and destroy a loop right off the bat.
Yeah.
'Cause it's like I know I'm going to need this for reference like all over the place.
Yeah.
But this is not intended to be the main thing.
Right.
Know? That being said, it's like when I find the right pieces to layer on top of it, I'm still going to want it there. Like it's going to have a reason for existing, but it gives you the ability to keep stacking and taking away things from the stack to create dynamics, you know? So I have a sensibility for that too that I think will play in well with that.
Yeah, with all that, I think it's going to be really exciting to work on this stuff. And I think we could kind of use Skylight Huddle for some of that too. The thing I need to do, and honestly been procrastinating on doing, I'm a chronic procrastinator.
Guilty.
Yeah.
Myself.
Yeah. I need to figure out a way still to write. I need to write out all my ideas in a way that like you and I can look at as a reference point. And I think the way I'd like to do it is probably doing it per project within the note section, like we did with that one. So we'll have like the note section with like the music in there and stuff, and that'll be really cool. But yeah, I'm excited. I just think that while we approach this, I just wanted to kind of key you in on some of the reasons why I write the way I do, and it's really because of like bands from the late 90s, early 2000s that were really melodic driven, had catchy choruses, but weren't like pop songs. They were at the time pop songs, but they were kind of off pop a little bit, like just off the axis a little bit, where they were really catchy, interesting songs, but they weren't necessarily like number one songs of that time. They were more I guess at that time you'd call them alternative. They were top alternative songs, like, because pop in the 2000s was like, I think, more boy band kind of stuff, like and then some like R&B and like stuff like that.
When I think pop in that time frame, like what I think of personally is like Roland drum machines, early Pro Tools, and like Britney Spears type stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
Yeah.
It's
That's what I think
it's a
of too.
very like signature kind of sound.
And that kind of dissolved into, and also hand in hand went with like some of the like pop punk sounds, you know, like you watch MTV around that time and there would be like, you know, Blink 182 or like Green Day or like that kind of stuff. But that over time became Blink, maybe not, maybe it did. It became more like considered alternative to some degree. Like I think Green Day definitely became more like alternative sounding. And then
Blink's an interesting one though, because you know, for what everyone contributed to that band,
yeah.
you know, it's to me still very, very clear that like it's literally Travis Barker's rhythm sensibilities. And to some degree, like what you would do with Mark, you know, playing bass, of course, that's all rhythm section, right?
Yeah.
But like the rest of it's pretty much just Tom's writing.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, he wrote stuff that worked really well for them and made that band popular, but he's been in so many other projects too.
Because he's a melody like writer
yeah,
like me.
because the stuff he writes, it's like I don't think he can quite pigeonhole into like a genre.
Right.
It's more about just like what he likes in a structure and a melody. Because
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of his solo stuff.
And it's always
I'm a
has that.
fan of Angels and Airwaves,
Me
like real
too.
big. So and it's just so obvious to me that like the same kinds of melodies
Yeah.
and lines are the things that are still in his music. It's like
Yeah.
that's more of the characteristic of it than like, oh well, it's pop punk, or oh well, it's alternative.
See,
or
I always saw myself as like in contribution to a band as someone who probably was more like him. In terms of like I'm thinking of like the melodies and like the way things flow into each other.
I mean, it's not an unfair comparison, given that I think, I don't know, I've been making music and playing with you for a while, and you definitely have a signature kind of thing. It's I don't
Yeah.
you know, again, I don't know all the background and context, but it's informed by something. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you sound a way that sounds like you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like any project you'd be involved in, there's certain I don't know, I wouldn't know how to like identify them or put my
Yeah.
finger on what they are specifically, but like your signature would be on it. It's
Well,
like
it's funny you say that because I think that's what Katie means when she says that like I'm a part of that her project, Silhouette Plane project.
yeah, because the
Because-
sensibilities that you would bring into it are like you don't they can't really be removed from you. Like
Yeah.
that's what you do.
Yeah, and when we were writing that music together, I couldn't. It was very hard to keep myself out of it because, well, for one thing, Katie and I also really like the same approach to writing anyway, where it's very melody driven. But the way I brought her melody out with the chord structure is what I do with my own stuff, you know, and so that's why it feels that way.
Yeah, where you're starting from that. Like the bass is
Yeah.
the compelling melody, and then we'll figure out what to put
and we'll
around
figure
it.
out how to go underneath. And that's how I've always been with my writing approach. Like, I used to play this game where I'd say, hey, play like 5 or 6 notes on the piano, and then I was like, I'll make a song out of it. And then like someone would come over and do that, and then I'd like put like a structure underneath it. They're like, well, how'd you do that? It's not as like remarkable these days as it used to be, but in high school it was a pretty cool little party trick, you know. But yeah, it's I've always worked that way, melody to chords, and then only up until recently where I've done this thing where I put that on the shelf and then I build a like a rhythm section, and then I bring that back in and see like, okay, like what it's almost like a balancing act at that point. You know, like how do you balance the like the melody and the way that works with the rhythm? Do I have to adjust the rhythm? Do I have to adjust the melody? You know, what do I have to do? And then it's balancing act until that part solidifies, and then I move on to the next section. It's kind of,
Interesting.
I like shake it down into place.
Yeah.
And that's been my approach most times. So like any of the songs you hear, like when I get really creative on a single day and I write like 5 or 6 songs, I've just ended up in a flow state where I'm repeating that process over and over really fast.
Right. So melodies come, and then the support structure
Yep.
builds around it.
And
yeah.
I don't and I used to be pigeonholed by keys, but since I learned modulation, now I can like trick people into thinking I'm in different keys than I'm actually in and stuff, which is really helpful with like writing really cool pop songs because a lot of pop songs modulate.
Yeah, it's especially now become more popular. Be a little bit more experimental, or you know, try different things.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, like a tone like this, where it's like, you know, like I'd like to write a song, and I have songs that are like this, but songs that go like, you know, it just has like a Blink feel to it, obviously, but or like I was messing with this. if you just rock on an E chord, that sounds really good. By the way, is that I don't think that's coming through here.
Not really.
A little bit.
Song.
It could come up. Yeah, that sounds better. I like this idea of like playing two notes and then figuring out like chords underneath it too, like because that'd all be an E. The way when you hit the string there and it has that little crackle in it, that's so nice.
Yeah, that's like the key to the sound. I've been
That's
telling you, I
sick.
love it, and that's what the Crayons got.
Yeah.
And I would argue the East River has more of that, almost too much. Like almost like all you get is that, and the body isn't as much there.
Yeah.
I liked the Crayon because it has the body, but it also has that harmonic up front, and I like it. It's really nice.
Yeah.
Now, I'm kind of high gain right now because I was going after that early 2000s, like, Christian alternative, Tooth and Nail,
Yeah.
Under Oath, that kind of stuff. Tension-based music is what I would call it.
Was it?
Tension-based music.
Tension-based, okay.
All the music I really like the stuff I like the most is tension-based music.
Ah.
And that's why I like melodic, tech death metal. That's why I like classical music. It's all tension and release-based.
That would be really cool.
That's also why I love things like sevens and why I can't stay away from diminished chords because they just add it. They're just anticipatory elements to like get you to where you're supposed to expect something to happen.
Yeah.
And that's why I love those kinds of structures. So this whole sound is based on that kind of thing.
I'm gonna throw in a little reverb on that just to space her out. Yeah. Of course, then you have like a beat, right? You have like the drums coming,
Yeah.
and then maybe like I can see this. It just be like a snare, like just hit like on the one, just on every beat, on the 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, do that. I like that. Chug it up.
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm kind of going by whatever you play.
You were playing an E there, right? Or was it a
a
third?
kind of.
A 3?
So I think technically I'm playing as if we're in C minor right now.
Okay. Which would be is it C or C sharp? I'm wondering.
Wait, I am down tuned, I think. Yeah. That should be an E, right? So, so I'm a half step down in my
Yep.
tuning. So yeah, you're right.
So you're in C sharp.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's perfect.
That would be what, a C sharp minor?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I'm not actually playing enough of it for you to say. That's my point. It's tension music. So I'm giving a fifth. I'm giving you enough to know which number it is, but not which version.
It's like a C sharp and a G sharp.
Yep.
See, playing like the major scale over top of that minor chord makes it sound like I guess you'd say savory. It's a savory feel to me. Whereas if I just played the minor with you, it'd just be too dark and
Sure.
spicy.
Yeah.
Like here, play that C sharp again. So let me just rock on that C sharp for a little bit, and we'll hear how dark and spicy it sounds. And then I'll switch over to that to the major and see if we can savor it up a little bit. Okay, go, yeah. So now I'm gonna switch over to that E.
It's cool though, because like that is the key to this stuff. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like
Also,
picking
this is
different
what I like
starting
about this.
points.
It's not too high gain, but it still wants to feed back, which is great.
It's a nice ring in there.
I like it.
It's really
It's
nice.
in all my favorite records. Like stuff like that, right? Like, why does that sound good? Because then technically this is just just a power chord,
Yeah.
but I'm adding what would be the second down from whatever the fundamental is. Because it would be this if it was an octave. So this
Yeah.
is 11.
That's a seven, right? was cool. Yeah, it was.
Calling all bass players.
Yeah.
Do you have 2 fingers? Do you like music? Well, have we got the opportunity for you? Those blend really well.
noticed that you probably heard it. You modulated, and it sounded amazing. You went to like it almost felt like you went to the like flat or the sharp 3 or something, or like what would that be if we were in? I don't even know what key we were in. I lost track of everything. I was just purely playing by ear.
It's E.
Still an E? Okay. I figured it was the same, but I wasn't sure. So, what was that?
I basically was playing
Sharp 3
in
would be a 4. I'm
playing E, pretending it's major, but letting nobody know what the 2 ever is. Letting you decide whether the two was like major, minor, or whatever. I was just kind of letting you fill.
I said the sharp 3, but I'm an idiot because that sharp 3 is just a major 4 chord.
True.
Could you play that structure again, or something close to it? It doesn't have to be the same, but something like it, because that sounded really nice.
Talking about that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's sick. And that, like, yeah, because I could be like, yep. Then that melody, like, just keep speaking to me. This, like,
It's just the sound of my fucking childhood, dude. I don't understand. This is the closest I've ever come. That sounds so good. What are you playing through? Is that just the delay providing all that? It's cool because the repeats almost sound like another instrument or something. They're resonant. Drums are sounding good today. You may want to turn the level on that blue pedal down just a little on the new one. No, not a bunch, but yeah. There you go.
Sounds better. I was wondering what was going on there. you.
What is that?
The band, it's called Ween.
Oh, I know Ween. A little.
I
like
love
a little
that.
bit.
I love that band, dude. They have a album. I can't remember what it's called. It's something about a mollusk. There's a mollusk on the album. It's got the song Ocean Man on it. That's one of the best songs, man.
Straight or swung, you pick.
Swing it, baby. It'd be like. That's starting to sound like. That's that early 2000s sound right there.
Hit him with the Nirvana fills.
It'd be like.
Nice. They're gonna hit us with that copyright.
I kind of like the carefree nature of some of those songs too. Like, not the Nirvana's not carefree. That's very anti-refined rock. But burn down the establishment. Burn down the establishment. Burn down the establishment. I missed it. Sorry. Me too. I don't know what I'm doing today.
They calling you.
What's up? No. Okay. What's your time frame? Oh. Yeah, I want to hear it, but let me call you back just a little bit. Okay. Love you. Bye. That would be my sister. What do you think of that? I like that.
Oh, I love that.
It's pretty.
I love shapes like that.
And then hitting the.
Yep, I like that. Like that a lot.
Yeah, it's really cool. Well, what do you think?
I don't know. It's about 5 o'clock. I think it's about that time, right?
We've been going a little longer than usual.
Yeah, it's all right
which
though.
is really good.
Feels good.
Well, I like to give more content to the loyal fans.
Yeah, I'm just excited to work on some stuff.
Me too.
So, are we? We'll probably go ahead and plug the usual stuff.
Yeah,
if you want. I'm gonna move over to the board and
Okay.
get ready to take us out. And if you want to maybe mention what we're doing with Skylight a little bit while I move over there.
Sounds good. Yeah, Skylight Huddle. See us on Tuesday on the Skylight Huddle YouTube channel. Appreciate those who've been stopping by. I have gotten some emails about possible guests, and that's really cool. I think this Tuesday it will look a little different yet again because I just acquired at Sweetwater's used section yesterday a very nice Mackie mix board. What's the letters on that again? VP.
It is a VLZ.
VLZ. Does that mean anything to anyone? It didn't mean anything to me, but apparently it's a good thing. John said it's a good board.
I had always heard that the VLZs had pretty clean preamps in them for just being a regular kind of board. It's not like a quote recording board or what I mean,
Right,
anything
right.
like that. But
So yeah, come tune in. Well, hopefully things will be back to where they're supposed to be. I'm a tinkerer at heart, and that's good when it comes to exploration and learning, but is very bad when it comes to commitment. So the space does constantly change, but we're settling into place and shifting the dust off the shoulders, if you would.
Well, we've had how many sessions now to do the Edison method, right? You know, and weed out all the stuff that isn't working right.
Yeah,
right?
we got about 1,000 more attempts to go.
You know, so
We're in a good spot. So I appreciate all that, and tune in Tuesday. And John, I'll let you clean up the rest.
cool. Yeah. Thanks again, everybody, for coming by. Your support means a lot to us. We're still looking for anybody who's interested in doing something. As you can see, this is not. We're not here to be perfect and make no mistakes. I mean, we bullshitted for how many hours today?
Yeah, there's a couple
So-
moments where I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I also think, actually to that point, if you're watching me, and of course, I'm not trying to say like, oh, look how sick I am at playing, but I'm not. I'm up here playing music, and I'm constantly critical of my own playing, and I think that could be the case for anyone up here.
Oh yeah.
Very critical of yourself, and just understand that I'm also dealing with that feeling, and it's difficult at first, but I think the more you put yourself in that position, at least for myself, I'm challenging myself to kind of ignore the critical mind that I have, but it helps the more you practice doing it.
Yeah, and we're willing to bring anybody in who's looking to play with others and kind of do
Absolutely.
what we're doing here. This is real low pressure. We're just kind of hanging out and seeing what falls out when we shake the basket.
That's right.
So, if you're interested in that sort of thing, you can get a hold of me personally, John DeWitt, Mike Shane, or
and skylighthuddle@gmail.com.
yeah, man, or media@vibeunit.com. All great ways to get in contact with us. So I think that's it, man. Session 43 in the books.
Dude, we're almost to the new year, and I'm really excited to see what's going to happen next.
All right. Well, until next time, we appreciate you, and we'll see you next week.